Pulse of East Providence with Mayor Bob DaSilva. You know, our administration prides itself in trying to reach out to the community in all available methods. We utilize our website, eastprovinceri.gov. We utilize our various social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or X. And we also utilize a newsletter. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, scroll down to the bottom of the page at eastprovinceri.gov, and you can sign up to get bi-weekly updates on everything that's happening in the city. We utilize this program to highlight some of the people in the community that are making a difference, not only in East Providence, but across the state. And those differences impact our residents, our businesses, and our community. So with that being said, today I'm honored to welcome a person who's known throughout East Providence and known throughout the state as an advocate to protect our state's history, as an advocate to protect your voting rights, and as a person who coined the term, "Townie pride never sleeps." My dear friend, Secretary of State Gregg Amore, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you for being here. I know you've got a busy schedule, but it's important to let people know some of the things that are going on with your office,
Sure.
and you've been super busy. But I'd like to start off generally with talking about my guest, letting my guest introduce themselves to the community. Tell us, Gregg Amore, how did you get into education? Where did you grow up? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about Gregg Amore.
Sure. So I'm an East Providence townie. Okay. Born and raised, and I went to the East Providence elementary schools. I did spend some time at Sacred Heart School on Taunton Avenue, but I went to Martin Junior High before it was a middle school, and East Providence High School. And I had such a great experience educationally in the East Providence school system that I knew when I was a senior in high school, I wanted to be a high school teacher, a history teacher. I was always fascinated by history. And so, you know, not many people get to do what they want to do and what they decide to do as a senior in high school. But I did. I came back to my own high school after graduating from Providence College with a history degree, not an education degree. I got the education credentials on the side because I wasn't sure. I was still trying to make my way through. But when I student taught at East Providence High School and other places, I was at Hope High School as well, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I knew I could coach as well. And I love baseball and hockey, and I played baseball and hockey at East Providence High School, and I played baseball at Providence College and coached baseball at Providence College. So this was a way I could do both things, right? Come back to my high school and give back and teach the subject I loved, and also coach student athletes, which I always appreciated every coach I had and every educator I had. And so I wanted to emulate what they did for me and do that for the next generation of townie students. And I was in the East Providence school system for 32 years.
Wow.
27 as a teacher. I started at Martin Middle School for just a year and a half. Then I went to the high school and taught history there. Advanced placement, United States history for years, civics and government, contemporary issues. I led the Young Democrats Club. I took kids to close up in Washington, D.C. I coached the hockey and baseball teams. I had a great career. I tell people, I had 5 bad days in those 32 years. They were all my fault. It was just a wonderful career.
The reality is, if you enjoy what you're doing, is it really work?
That's right.
You're going into work, you love what you're doing, you're impacting young people and making a difference in their lives.
I loved every moment of it, and I think it's really special when you live in the community in which you teach, because your neighbors are your students, and you feel a responsibility to them, and you feel a responsibility to their parents. And I know you're in the community every day, right? And people know you're accessible. And that's how I felt as an educator and a coach living in the community. I was accessible. I could be pumping my gas, and somebody might say, you know, my son should get a few more at-bats. And, you know, and that's okay. That's okay. I think that's what community is about. So I'm a tried and true townie, and townie pride never sleeps. And I'm really proud of what our community is, and I think a lot of that has to do with a really solid school system.
No, I agree 100%. And you served as the athletic director. That's a tough job. You're navigating all the different sports and all the different personnel. Explain that process.
So I think when you come to that job as a coach, and I coached 2 sports, and I coached in college too, you come with some credibility. Right. So the coaches kind of respect you because you're coming from their ranks, and that helps. Right. That helps. You know, the administration part of it is a lot of times dealing with parents who are not happy about playing time or whatever else. But you know, if you have a reasonable conversation, you can get past those things. But I mean, I had the great opportunity to plan out the new East Providence High School athletic facilities. That was part of what we did as an athletic department team. And anybody that drives by East Providence High School knows we did it right.
I got to tell you, I am so happy that you were involved in that, because we have some of the best athletic fields in the state.
Oh, no question. No question.
You hear stories about other municipalities trying to build new schools, and they have to sacrifice on the athletic fields. And I think athletics are as important as the academics in building strong leaders and building people in the community too.
No question. And you know what, Mayor? Our kids should have the best facilities in the state. For years, our kids were going to facilities that were better than ours, right? Now, that's not the case, and they feel a pride in that, and you can see it in performance, right? Kids feel better about it, and you can see it in the number of people that come to the games and appreciate those facilities.
I'll tell you what, we've been doing okay with our high school sports have been doing incredible in all aspects. A lot of that, I think, has to do with the facility, but also the pride they feel being part of the school system.
And we have lots of coaches in our education system that are townies.
Right.
They've come through the system.
Now, during this 32 years, by the way, 32 years, you look so young. So, I mean, you must have started really young.
I did, 21. I got hired right out of
So you were a young man. You started at 21. And then during that time, you met this beautiful wife. Tell us about her.
So my wife, Lee Smith, who was my high school sweetheart, we ended up being together for the rest of our lives. She's a townie too, and we have two beautiful daughters, Tess and Megan, who both live and work in Washington, D.C. Now, and went to East Providence High School and had a great experience. And I'm going to talk about that for a minute, because both my daughters went through East Providence High School and then both graduated from really good universities, American University and Manhattan College, ahead of time. And they will tell anyone who will listen, they were unbelievably well prepared through their East Providence High School education.
Now, you hear all the time about people, achieving such great educational attainment post East Providence High School, and then going into Ivy League schools. I mean, we do have a great school system, and it really builds community. All the events around the school, whether you're recognizing people at an awards night, whether it's a sports event, it brings people together. And it's a wonderful community.
And this is a city of 50,000 people, give or take, but it feels smaller.
It does.
And that's one of the reasons.
Yes, it does. You're an educator, you're teaching people about history, you decide to get into politics. Tell us about that.
Well, it has something to do with you.
Yes.
You decided to run for the state Senate, which opened a House seat, and then I ran for that House seat.
That's right.
And I was successful in a very tough race. And then I served 10 years in the General Assembly, where I focused on educational issues, including school infrastructure.
We're going to talk about that.
I thought, there's two things about being a state rep, and you were one, so right? You represent the state, but you represent your community, and you want to make sure you balance that out. And I think I did a good job of balancing that out. But I really focused on how to support East Providence in my 10 years there. That taught me a lot about what the Secretary of State does.
Yes.
And I worked with the Secretary of State on a number of pieces of legislation, some successful, some not successful. But I started to learn about that office, and when that office opened up, Secretary Gorbea was term limited, I decided to run for Secretary of State.
Biggest accomplishment that you think you were able to achieve as a state rep?
Well, that high school.
Right.
Every time I drive by that high school, I feel good, because there was an incentive program that I had a lot to do with. Right. I was the chair of the finance subcommittee on education, and that program that was implemented statewide helped East Providence get more state support than they normally would get based on building incentives. And we needed that high school desperately. The old high school was in ill repair. And so I'm proud about that. I'm also proud about the Hope Scholarship. Yeah. So I authored the Hope Scholarship, which is the scholarship at Rhode Island College that allows students to get their last 2 years free if they complete their first 2 years on time and in good academic standing. Basically, it's tuition reduction based on merit. You've earned that tuition reduction. And that's been a game changer for Rhode Island College and for thousands of Rhode Island students. So I'd say those are the two things I'm most proud of.
That's fantastic. So you ended up, you had an opportunity. You ran for Secretary of State. You've been doing a great job. And you happen to be the right person, I think, at the right time, because we're celebrating 250 years of being a country, of being a nation. And you're very involved with that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm the chair of the Semi-Quincentennial Commission, the RI 250 Commission. And that's statutory. We are running that commission as the Secretary of State's office. And that's rare. That is not the case in any state in America, except for Rhode Island. And it helps to be a U.S. history teacher and to know United States history, for sure. But it's really a remarkable effort to celebrate the nation's semi-quincentennial, but also celebrate our cities and towns. Every city and town received a grant from the RI 250 Commission, and then organizations within those cities and towns, like the East Providence Historical Society, received grants to tell the story of their city in relationship to the story of America starting in 1776. And we've seen tremendous programming across the state in every city and town, connecting the dots between the American Revolution and Rhode Island's role in that revolution. It's been a joy. It's been busy, and East Providence hosted a tremendous Liberty Tree planting. We're planting Liberty trees in 39 cities and towns. It's a way to remember 1776, and it's also a way to connect with young people and say, look, 50 years from now during the tricentennial, this tree will be blooming, it'll be mature, it'll provide shade, and that plaque will be there reminding them what 250 was. And East Providence did a great job with that tree planting. I think it was the most well-attended tree planting of the ones we've done thus far.
We love trees here in East Providence, and that just added to some of the projects we have going across the city.
And you did it at the Philip Walker House, right?
Yes.
One of the, if not the oldest house in Rhode Island.
It is.
And perfect setting for that. We had colonial militia there. Your team did a great job organizing that.
I think it's important for residents to understand the important role that Rhode Island had in our independence, and maybe you could share a little bit about that. I've learned quite a bit. Like,
sure.
You know, our cemeteries are the final resting place for some of the people who were instrumental in forming this nation.
And you're honoring them with those banners on the street posts.
That's thanks to the grant.
That's the grant, yeah. And that, what a great idea. Yeah. And what I hope, when I was a kid, I'd ride my bike down Algonquin Road and then to Massasoit Avenue, and I'd say, well, what's Algonquin and Massasoit, right? And so it triggered some sort of inquiry, and I wanted to learn more. And I'm hoping that when people drive by those banners and read those names and say, wow, this person was from East Providence and they fought in the American Revolution, that will spark interest and they'll investigate more. And I hope that happens. Rhode Island has a tremendous story to tell, right? I mean, I like to say that the American Revolution started here, right, with the burning of the Gaspee, 1772. And when you compare that to the Boston Tea Party, there is no comparison. The Gaspee was burned, the crew removed, the captain shot. This was literally the first shot of the American Revolution, and it started the committees of correspondence. It united the colonies around a cause, which was pushing back on British tyranny around taxation without representation. That started right here in Rhode Island. And Stephen Hopkins, one of our signers, was instrumental in making that case. He wrote The Rights of the Colonies Examined in 1764. He was making the case that we need to be independent in our governance because the Rhode Island Charter, and you know the charter is at the State House, 1663, that Rhode Island Charter was unique because it gave self-governance to Rhode Island. Not for all men, as we know, we're moving toward all men, and I think we're there. We're finally there now, but it took 250 years. It's
fascinating. I can sit here and listen to you talk about history all day, and it's quite fascinating. But one of the things that comes along with history are important documents. And you've been an advocate to try to get a state archive, a place where all of these very important documents can be housed securely. Talk about that.
Yeah, so that's been a long effort through the Secretary of State's office. Secretary Gorbea promoted state archives. We're the only state in America that does not have a purpose-built state-owned archives facility, the only state. And almost every state in conjunction with that has a history center, telling the story of their state and making these magnificent documents accessible to the public. So we are pushing a bond question that we hope is on November's ballot that would ask Rhode Islanders to spend $45 million to establish the Rhode Island History Center and Archives. And that would allow us the opportunity to display the Goddard copy of the Declaration of Independence. There's only 9 in the world. It's signed by John Hancock with a handwritten note, a true copy. When Ken Burns, the great documentarian, saw it, he said, wow, I've never seen one of these before. We have that. We have a copy of the Bill of Rights. It's in better condition than the national copy. We have the Gaspee documents and the box that King George sent that inquiry in. We have a treasure trove of these just amazing American artifacts, not just Rhode Island artifacts. And we need people to access them. And we also need people to know that they're safe. They're protected in the right facility, the right way. And so we're promoting this. And this will be an education center. This will be a place where the community can come. We'll be able to accept exhibits from around the country and around the world. Right now, we don't have a facility like that. I think it's an opportunity to tell our story, and there's an economic benefit.
Absolutely.
Historical tourism is popular,
yes.
And it becomes more popular when you have something like the semi-quincentennial.
I think that'd be wonderful, not only to protect our historic documents, but also to encourage people to come visit. There's a lot of history in Providence, a lot of history in East Providence, and working together, we can turn this into something that attracts people from all over the country to come learn more about Rhode Island's unique position and role in our independence.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that I try to talk about when I'm out talking about the semi-quincentennial is, you know, we're small, but we played an oversized role in the American Revolution. The 1st Rhode Island Regiment fought everywhere with distinction, and then the Black Regiment, as it's called, which was black soldiers, indigenous soldiers, white soldiers, they fought in the culminating battle of Yorktown, where they defeated the British, and General Cornwallis surrendered. The Rhode Island battle flag was there, and it's still with us, although it's in Virginia right now being displayed at the America 250 display at the Army Museum at Fort Belvoir. But it's going to come back to Rhode Island, and we need a place to put it.
That's fantastic. One of the biggest, well, you know, explain to people some of the other roles that the Secretary of State has, and most importantly, explain the role in ensuring fair elections.
Yeah, so that part of our office gets the most attention, obviously, and it's gotten the most attention since 2016, before I was in the office. When there's doubt around elections, when there's claims of election fraud, when there's claims of rigged elections, then obviously election systems and administration gets attention and scrutiny. In some ways that's good, because we can tell the story of how elections are administered. But Rhode Island administers their elections, in my view, the best way you can. It's a three-pronged stool, right? It's the locals, the Board of Canvassers in East Providence. It's the Board of Elections, an independent body that serves 9-year terms beyond any governor's two terms. Democrats, Republicans, independents, making decisions around ballot questions or challenges, making decisions around final certification of an election. Whereas the Secretary of State's office manages the voter registration list, and we promote elections, right? We want to give people information about the elections. We all work together, but we have separate duties. And because we do so, it's decentralized. And it's very difficult to manipulate a decentralized election system. Same in America, right? We don't have 50 elections or one election. We have 10,000 elections in America. Each county runs an election. In our state, every city and town runs an election. You know how difficult it is to manipulate 10,000 elections or one part of a ballot of 10,000 elections? The Founding Fathers were brilliant in establishing a decentralized state-based election system so that no singular person, especially a chief executive, could manipulate that. And I think that's really smart, and we should hold on and protect that.
The way you framed that just now, it makes so much sense. Like, I've never actually thought about the way you just described it. When you've got it spread out through so many different entities running it, it makes it a lot harder for people to actually, you know, to have some type of negative impact.
Well, you hear often that machines can be manipulated.
Right.
Just about every state, including ours, does a post-election audit where we hand count a certain percentage of precinct ballots to make sure that the machines counted correctly. We have the gold standard of audits in Rhode Island. We're very confident that our machines not only are checked prior to the election and make sure they're in working condition and they're producing the correct outcomes, but post-election we make sure that the count matches up, and we do that on a random precinct in a random race, and since 2017 those two numbers have matched, and that should make people feel good about the fact that those machines are working as intended.
Now, your office also handles small business registrations.
That's right.
I keep hearing that we've seen some really high numbers in small business.
Yeah, record-setting numbers.
Explain that.
Year after year. So, you know, people, and I don't think people know this, 99% of Rhode Island's businesses are small businesses.
Right.
Right? So that's the backbone of Rhode Island's economy, the small business economy. We have some big companies here for sure, but most of our businesses are small. And so you start by starting, right? You start by registering your business with our office. We provide you all the information you need in hopes that you'll be successful. Yeah. We provide mentorship if you ask for it. We provide advice around what you should and shouldn't do in those early stages. We provide data for folks so they can look at the competitive nature of the market that they're entering and where that market is and isn't. And we try to make the administrative process of starting a business as easy as possible. Business owners have enough on their plate, right? They're trying to access capital, they're trying to make things work, they're trying to make payroll. We want to make sure that the administrative side of that, the fact that they're filing with us, the fact that they're maintaining their business, and they have a record of that and they're in good standing, we try to make that really easy so that's not a concern. And I think we've done that through modernization, and we're going to continue to modernize so that most of this activity can be done online. But if you call our office, you get an immediate response. If you send us an email, we respond within the business day. If you come in person, you're going to get immediate help from our team.
And this is what I see here in East Providence, right? I see that we have a team, and when a person comes into East Providence looking to start a business, we drop everything and help them.
Right.
But then I hear those people who want to be political or politicize things that are talking about how it's the hardest place to start a business. I don't see that. I see people coming in all the time, and we sit down with them, we help them. Your office sits down with people and helps them and gets them started. And then you were just talking about a record-setting number of new applications.
Yeah, I think people want to be their own boss, first of all, right? They want their own responsibility for their own livelihood. So I think that's something that should be encouraging. And the fact that they are doing that in this state where you hear it's so hard to start a business. Look, it's easy to start a business. It's hard to maintain a business, and it's hard to get capital and access capital, and it's hard to find qualified employees. That's across the board. That's not just Rhode Island, right? When people talk about Rhode Island's business ranking, that's a business ranking based on taxation, based on unionization. You know, there are trade-offs there. There are trade-offs. You can have a really great business rating in Mississippi, but you don't have Rhode Island. Right. You don't have the access to art, culture, the shore, all of the things that make Rhode Island special, travel access. So there's a trade-off there. And in my view, you know, when you talk about a unionized workforce, that's positive, right? That's a positive because that props people up into the middle class, maintains it for generations.
Excellent. Right now, are we tracking any special legislation that you're interested in getting done?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. There are two real key pieces of legislation. One is the Rhode Island Voting Rights Act. Okay. So we're trying to codify the key elements of the Federal Voting Rights Act in Rhode Island as the courts start to chip away at the Federal Voting Rights Act. And basically that would ensure that Rhode Islanders, if they feel they have been discriminated against in any way through the elections process, they can sue whatever entity has discriminated against them through a private right of action in the Superior Court. And that's really what the Voting Rights Act does, right? It protects against voter dilution, voter suppression, voter discrimination. This Rhode Island Voting Rights Act would do the same. And then on the business services side, we've got an anti-fraud piece of legislation. Unfortunately, you know, and you've seen this, there are many actors out there, bad actors out there, who are trying to manipulate anything they can for their own benefit. And in the meantime, they're harming good people who are just trying to do the right thing. And in some cases, those are based on false solicitation. So you'll get a letter in the mail, it'll look like it's an official letter, or you'll get an email, it'll look like it may even be from our office, and it will be asking you to pay an exorbitant amount to register your business in Rhode Island. Right. When that amount is not exorbitant, and we can help you through that process. But many people who are juggling a lot of things say, oh, I have to do this, I get this done right, I'm gonna pay 3 times what I should to do this. So we're trying to crack down on those solicitations, and we're also trying to crack down on false business filings. People filing as a business only to access private capital and private information about a business. So they're using real name, real number, maybe address. They're establishing a business, and it's not really a business. They're using that to access other things like credit cards or some advanced capital. And we're going to crack down on that as well. We're very confident that that legislation is going to move, and it will protect our small business community, and it'll protect, you know, that entrepreneur who's just starting up, who thinks, oh, I got an official letter, I've got to act on this, when it's really not.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, you're doing great things as Secretary of State. You did great things as a state rep, as an educator. There's something first of all, I'm very proud of the fact that I always, and I say it publicly all the time, very proud of the fact that the Secretary of State is an East Providence resident, a townie. Also very proud of the fact that our Senate President, Val Lawson, is an East Providence resident.
Class of 1984, my class.
She went to school with you, right? And served with you as a teacher. I'm also super proud of the fact that Katie Kazarian was recently elevated to Majority Leader in the House. I mean, we've got an incredible team here in East Providence, working not only for our residents, but for the entire state. And And look, it's remarkable. I remember as a young legislator, you'd see certain communities had all these different things happening. I see all that happening in East Providence, and we're getting some really incredible things happening. I try to follow your lead. We're building a community center. You helped build that high school. We're building our residence community center.
Our parks, our playgrounds are fantastic.
Been to Kent Park?
Yeah, that's I walk my dog every morning. This is a great place to live. It's always been a great place to live. But I think we're going to the next level here. You see it. You can see it when you just drive around the community. Yeah. And I know people will complain about the roads, and yeah, that's it. That's
going to get taken care of.
But our city roads are actually in really good shape and getting better.
Yes.
But this is a vibrant place.
Yeah.
Restaurants, right? Art, culture. A great school system. This is a vibrant place. I'm proud to be from East Providence.
And it's thanks to leaders like yourself, Val, Katie, Bobby Brito, Matt Dawson. I'll mention all of them. They're all good. They're all good people.
Yeah, they're all good public servants. These are not people in it for the wrong reasons. These are people who have been inspired to serve, and they do the best they can. It's a tough environment, right? Everybody's a critic, and we get that. That's part of the job. But these are good people who are trying their best. So
what do you think? You're going to be seeking a second term.
Yeah, I announced for re-election. I will file in 3 weeks or so.
And what do you want to be remembered for in that role? What is some of your biggest accomplishments you hope? I mean, other than I think the Archive Center should happen. I hope people support that. But what are some of your other big things?
Yeah, I always think about, because I'm a huge baseball fan, I always think about the umpire.
Yeah.
Right? When you don't notice the umpire, they've done a great job. And so I'm hoping that, when I'm done, we'll have 8 years of no drama,
yes,
of continued progress, right? The Archives History Center, some other things, some protective legislation, kind of tightening up systems that already exist, improving on systems that exist. None of it is what I would call sexy, yeah, but it's consistent and good work on behalf of the public, and you don't notice, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, listen, I'm being told we have 2 minutes left. Is anything that you want to share with the community that I may have forgotten to ask you?
No, I think what everyone should look for, though, is they should go to RhodeIsland250.org, and there's a calendar of events for the semi-quincentennial all over the state. Westerly last week had a drone show that was pretty cool, but every city and town has something unique to offer. And Rhode Island East Providence is on that RhodeIsland250.org calendar, prominently displayed. And then there's some major events, right? We've got the water fire coming up July 4th. All 3 of our copies of the Declaration of Independence will be on display at the State House that day for a few hours. The Declaration of Independence is traveling the state. It'll be in all 5 counties starting pretty soon and leading up to the July 4th holiday. Rhode Islanders should get out and see these copies. If you live in Kansas, if you live in California, you don't have access to these things, but Rhode Islanders do. You should get out and see them. It's part of your history, and we can all connect to that second sentence in the Declaration of Independence that I talked about at the Liberty Tree planting. That's an American sentence, right? All people are created equal. We all have certain rights, and we are the government. We the people are the government, right? The consent of the governed is so important. I think people should really embrace this. Almost all of it is free. Yeah. Almost all of it is free. So get out there and do that.
Well, listen, Secretary Amore, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So we just spent half an hour that went by like that, because when you're talking to someone with as much knowledge as Secretary Gregg Amore, it makes the conversations very smooth and go as quicker than I wish, actually. Look, we will continue to bring to you information about what's happening in our community, what's happening across the state. We are so grateful that Secretary Amore took time out of his day to come in and talk to us. We'll see you next week on the Pulse of East Providence with Mayor Bob DaSilva. I wish you all a safe holiday season, safe summer season coming up. Stay well, stay safe. We'll see you out there.